Even though it's a sci-fi fantasy game, Destiny 2 takes place in a variety of settings across the solar system that are all inspired by real-life locations. This video will compare each Destiny 2 patrol zone to the planets and moons that inspired them. Because most of these locations are in space, I obviously can't film it myself, so I'm going to be relying pretty heavily on public domain images captured by NASA missions to demonstrate what they look like in real life. Because the images captured by telescopes and probes are often limited, I'm also going to be using an astronomy simulator called SpaceEngine to supplement the real photos. SpaceEngine is based on real images and astronomical data, so it gives a fairly accurate view of what each location would look like. We begin with the closest planet to the Sun, Mercury. In Destiny, Mercury was a playable location in the Curse of Osiris expansion. Unfortunately, a lot of that content has since been removed from the game. However, the Crucible map Altar of Flame is still playable, so I'll use that for comparison. On Altar of Flame, the skybox appears blown out by the sun. This is largely accurate as Mercury is so close to the sun that any human who travels there without protection would receive severe radiation exposure. Looking directly at the sun on Earth can cause permanent vision damage, so doing that on Mercury would be even worse. In Destiny, Mercury features vegetation which can be seen on the ground of the Crucible map. However, in real life, there isn't any evidence of life on the planet. In-universe, this discrepancy is explained by the Traveler magically terraforming the planet, which we'll see as a common theme as we visit other locations. Real-life Mercury is a very rocky planet with no atmosphere. Liquid water would be required to support the garden world seen in Destiny, but Mercury is too small to maintain a significant atmosphere. It has approximately 38% of Earth's gravity, which makes it easy for gases to escape the planet over time without being replenished by other sources. Much stronger gravity is required to maintain an atmosphere nearly indefinitely, unless the planet has a geological process that consistently releases new gas from beneath the surface, which doesn't happen on Mercury. Water only exists as a solid or gas at pressures below 0.6% of Earth's atmosphere, so it's impossible for it to be in a liquid state on the surface of Mercury. The second planet from the Sun is Venus. Venus has never been a patrol zone in Destiny 2, but we do have the reprised Vault of Glass raid which takes place on the planet. Destiny's Venus is a jungle full of lush vegetation and splendor. In real life, Venus is also unable to support this kind of life, but for the opposite reason as Mercury. Venus has too much atmosphere to make Earth-like life viable on the planet. At the surface, Venus's atmospheric pressure is 93 times stronger than Earth. Venus is able to support this level of atmosphere because its surface gravity is about 90% of Earth's. Due to a runaway greenhouse effect, Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system, even hotter than Mercury, which is closer to the Sun. The heavy carbon dioxide atmosphere traps heat inside the planet, making the average surface temperature 464 degrees Celsius or 867 degrees Fahrenheit. This is too hot for water at Venus's atmospheric pressure because it's past the critical temperature where water turns into a supercritical fluid. In this state, there isn't a meaningful distinction between liquid and gas, which makes Earth life's use of water as a solvent impossible. Destiny's explanation for Venus's lush vegetation is once again terraforming by the Traveler during the beginning of the Golden Age. Destiny 2 depicts a few different parts of Earth. The primary two locations are the European Dead Zone and Cosmodrome patrol zones. The Cosmodrome's inspiration is much easier to identify as it clearly takes inspiration from the real-life Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, which was used as the primary launching point for the Soviet Union's space program. Currently, the Russian government maintains a lease to use the location as a launch facility for space exploration. Destiny's Cosmodrome continues to be a launch point for space operations, as during the Golden Age it was a launch site for extraterrestrial and later potential extrasolar exploration. The real-life and Destiny versions of the location are pretty similar as a result. The inspiration for the EDZ is far trickier to narrow down, as the game never specifies the location beyond somewhere in Europe. Based on the topography, road signs, and the name Trostland, we can guess that the location is in a German-speaking region of Central Europe. The area is somewhat mountainous, which makes it likely the EDZ is near the Alps, making the most likely location near Switzerland and Germany's borders in real life. Because this location isn't highly specific, I don't have a lot of good images to share from real life, so I'm just going to share some pictures of the Alps and forests of Switzerland. It's also hard to assess the accuracy of the depiction without a clear sense of location. However, having visited both forests and mountains on Earth, it seems spot on to me. Our next location is the only other place humans have set foot on besides Earth, the Moon, which I will refer to as Luna to avoid confusion with other planets' moons. In Destiny 2, Luna is a patrol space that takes place near human settlements and research installations in Oceanus Procellarum, which is Latin for Ocean of Storms. This location isn't actually an ocean, as the moon doesn't contain liquid water due to not having a significant atmosphere just like Mercury. By naming convention, many dark features on Luna's surface are given names that are seas or oceans. However, these features are actually basaltic floodplains formed early in the moon's development. They're composed of volcanic rocks and minerals rather than the water the name suggests. The Ocean of Storms is the largest of these plains, making up about 10% of Luna's surface. We also have the Crucible map, the Anomaly, which specifically is located in Mare Cognitum, a subsection of the Ocean of Storms. The name translates roughly to Sea of Knowledge. This has lore implications, as the Crucible map features a mysterious artifact that communicates with the Pyramid Fleet and is a source of noetic effects, including hallucinations and nightmares people experience on Luna. Destiny's depiction of the moon is largely accurate, as we see a very rocky surface. The major inaccuracies are the exaggerated size of Earth in the skybox, and the surface gravity, which, like all Destiny locations, is the same as Earth. In reality, Earth appears much smaller in the sky, and the surface gravity is about 1/6 that of Earth's. I do understand Bungie's decision to not vary the gravity of every single planet in the game, because that would be a fairly complex task and might disrupt gameplay. Other games have done this successfully, most notably The Outer Wilds, which is a puzzle space exploration game. But for a first-person shooter, that might be a little bit more difficult. However, being on the moon with normal Earth gravity does break the immersion somewhat for me. It doesn't quite feel like the moon. Other locations that have gravity that is incorrectly depicted are Mercury, Mars, asteroids, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and finally Nessus. In all of these cases, the gravity is multiple times stronger than it actually would be in the real locations. Earth actually has the strongest gravity of any terrestrial body in the entire solar system. Our next stop is the fourth planet from the sun, Mars. In Destiny 2, we used to have a Mars patrol zone from the Warmind expansion that took place in the polar regions of the planet, but this has since been sunset. However, the Witch Queen reintroduced a few parts of this space. We have the Mars Heist Battleground, the Spire of the Watcher dungeon, and a few missions of the Witch Queen campaign. The original Destiny 1 Mars patrol zone took place in Meridian Bay, which featured the city of Freehold run by the Clovis Bray Corporation. This location returns in the first mission of the Witch Queen campaign, Arrival. Meridian Bay was explored by the Opportunity rover between January 2004 and June 2018, which was during the development of Destiny 1 and Warmind, making it a logical choice. The game's depiction of Mars is largely accurate, although the moons Phobos and Deimos are exaggerated in the skybox like Earth was on Luna. In reality, they appear as dots of light in the sky, similar to stars or planets, as they're too small to resolve significant features with the naked eye from Mars's surface. Because Mars was also terraformed by the Traveler in Destiny, it also featured vegetation, although this feature disappeared after the collapse. Mars is in a similar situation to Mercury in real life, even though it's a bit colder and slightly more habitable. As shown in the Warmind expansion, there is water ice on the planet's poles, however we haven't conclusively discovered liquid water on the Red Planet, even though it likely existed in the past when Mars had a stronger atmosphere. Today its atmosphere is right on the threshold of it being too thin to support liquid water. Mars is largely barren and unable to support vegetation without extra life support in the form of habitats with atmospheres and pressures. The soil also is littered with perchlorate salts, which serve as a natural antifreeze for water, but also would kill most plants if you tried to plant them directly in unfiltered Martian soil. Beyond Mars is the asteroid belt. This location is interesting because it's perhaps the most divergent in Destiny 2. In the belt, a mass of ships that tried to escape the Witness during the collapse formed a broken, tangled shore that is now called the Reef. The Tangled Shore Patrol Zone appeared in the Forsaken expansion, but was sunset from Destiny 2 last year. However, we still have the Warden of Nothing strike, which takes place in the Prison of Elders, a prison inside the Reef. We can't see a whole lot of the location in-game as the prison is an enclosed space, but we do see a large mass of tangled debris in orbit. The Reef appears to recreate a common trope about the asteroid belt, which is a largely exaggerated density. In reality, most asteroids are thousands of kilometers apart, so the belt is largely empty. You could easily fly right through it without coming anywhere near hitting an asteroid, unlike movies like Star Wars would have you believe. We don't see any specific asteroids depicted in Destiny 2, but we do know from Destiny 1 that the Reef is located near the asteroid Vesta, as the game features the Vestian Outpost social space. An area of the Dreaming City, a pocket dimension orbiting the Tangled Shore, is also named Racelvira, which is a crater in the polar regions of Vesta. Vesta is the second largest asteroid in the belt, behind only the dwarf planet Ceres, which was destroyed during the Reef Wars in Destiny lore. This would increase the density of asteroids in the belt, however, most of them would probably stay somewhere near where Ceres' current orbit is because of the way gravity works, and wouldn't really end up going near Vesta. The gravity of Vesta is also exaggerated in game as it's only 2.5% of Earth's at the equator. The next location is one of Jupiter's closest moons, Io. Like Mercury and Mars, the Io Patrol Zone and most of its content has been removed from Destiny 2. However, we still have the Javelin 4 Crucible map. In lore, the Traveler was in the middle of terraforming this moon when the Pyramid fleet arrived during the collapse. The Traveler left Io for Earth to make a stand against the Witness. The half-terraformed state of the planet is interesting because, like Venus, Io features strong volcanism. The most interesting feature of the moon is its role within Jupiter's intense magnetic field that extends far beyond the surface of the planet out into the orbits of Europa, Callisto, and Ganymede. Io is located deep within the planet's magnetosphere and acts as a charged reservoir for radioactive ions. Io's volcanic ejecta combine with Jupiter's already intense magnetosphere to create a field of truly epic proportions. This means sometimes there's an electric potential difference of up to 400,000 volts and a current of 3 million amperes between the two sides of the moon. For context, that's more than 3,000 times more potential and 15,000 times more current than the average electrical outlet in the United States. As a result, Io is so radioactive that without shielding, a human would receive a lethal dose of radiation in about 3 hours. This makes it highly unlikely that vegetation and human settlements could survive on the surface there at all. It goes without saying that the game's depiction isn't very accurate, as you'd need a lot of space magic to clean up that moon and make it habitable. Destiny 2 also features a second moon of Jupiter, Europa. This moon is farther out than Io, so it's less radioactive. However, without shielding, humans would receive a lethal dose of radiation in about 20 hours on Europa. The surface is made mostly of water ice, so Destiny's depiction is largely accurate, aside from the obvious gravity problems. Europa features strong cryovolcanism, which is the technical term for volcanoes that eject liquid water from the interior of the moon into the atmosphere. This strongly supports the theory that Europa has a liquid water ocean beneath its icy exterior. In Destiny, Europa is a cold and frigid location with a mean surface temperature of a mere 102 degrees above absolute zero, or negative 171 degrees Celsius, which translates to about negative 275 degrees Fahrenheit. The next location is another moon, but this time Saturn's moon, Titan. This moon is yet another patrol space that was sunset. However, we do still have the Pacifica Crucible and Deep Six Gambit maps that take place on Titan. Titan is perhaps the most interesting extraterrestrial location in the entire solar system, as it features a strong atmosphere and cold temperature, which makes for a potent biochemical environment that resembles Earth. However, instead of liquid water, Titan has seas of liquid methane and other hydrocarbons. The surface pressure is stronger than Earth's at about 1.45 atmospheres. Even though Titan has lower gravity than Luna, the atmosphere is likely regenerated from some kind of natural methane reservoir. However, we don't know exactly why or how this happens. Methane can exist in solid ice, liquid, and gas forms on Europa, so there's an entire methane cycle that continuously regenerates the planet's atmosphere. The sea depicted in Destiny 2 is the Kraken Mare, which is the largest of Titan's seas and is located in the polar regions of the planet. The sky is pretty clear in Destiny 2, which is largely inaccurate. The thick atmosphere of nitrogen, methane, and other hydrogen makes the view on the ground pretty hazy and orangish. Titan is one of the most unique locations explored in Destiny 2, and is probably the sunset location I would most like to see return. Next, we visit Titan's parent planet, Saturn. Destiny 2 features Cathedral of Dusk, a crucible map that takes place on Oryx's dreadnought, which is inside the rings of the planet. We also have the reprised Kingsfall raid, which occurs in the same location. These spaces give a beautiful view of Saturn and its rings. The only inaccuracy is the visual depiction of the rings, which appear as a number of large rocks. In reality, the main rings are composed of chunks of water ice that don't usually exceed 10 meters in length. The rings shown in the game are a bit too brown and should be a bit more white like Europa's surface. It's unlikely you'd be able to see large chunks of ring particles at the distance they're supposed to be from Oryx's dreadnought, as the hole punched in the rings by the ship is large enough to be seen from other planets. Even though it's inaccurate, it's hard to deny that the rendering in-game is stunning. Our next location is another gas giant, Neptune. In the Lightfall expansion, players visit a city within the clouds called Neomuna. This location is a bit strange, as there's a hard rocky ground that the city is built on top of, somewhere beneath the clouds of the planet. Neptune does have a rocky and icy core beneath all the clouds, but doesn't have a traditional surface like the terrestrial planets. Gases that far deep into the planet's interior would have high temperatures and pressures exceeding 1,000 times Earth's. This would make the rocky core unsuitable for human habitation, and would make it impractical for a ship to escape once it plunged that deep. Stars are still visible in Neomuna's sky, which means it likely is somewhere in the planet's upper atmosphere. However, it would be impossible for a rocky outcropping to exist at that height, as it would fall straight back to the core. There also appears to be a kind of liquid sea next to Liming Harbor that also doesn't really make sense. I'm sure there's some kind of in-universe traveler space magic explanation, but any realistic settlements on Neptune would need to be cloud cities floating in blimps that fly around the upper atmosphere. Think Columbia from BioShock Infinite or Cloud City from the Star Wars series. Human settlements on Neptune aren't as unrealistic as they sound, so it's a shame Bungie didn't opt for the more realistic and frankly interesting version of Neptunian cities. The penultimate location I'm going to cover in this video is Nessus. Nessus is a centaur, which is a class of small asteroid-like bodies that originate in the Kuiper Belt but are pulled into highly elliptical orbits by the gravitational influence of the gas and ice giant planets Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. These centaurs are unstable, meaning their orbits will decay within the next 10 million years, causing them to either be ejected from the solar system after a close approach with one of the planets, or become a Jupiter family comet that eventually sublimates most of its ice before colliding with the sun or a planet. Nessus's orbit currently takes it just beyond Saturn at closest approach and well beyond Neptune at farthest from the sun. Because Neptune is fairly small with a diameter of 60 kilometers at the largest and is very far away, we don't have very much information about it. We do know that it's very red though. In Destiny 2, this is because a large amount of red vegetation, however this is incredibly unlikely. Having an origin in the Kuiper Belt, Nessus likely resembles Pluto, which has reddish features from tholins in the surface ice. Tholins are organic compounds formed from irradiation of water, carbon dioxide, or methane ices that form a reddish color. Nessus's fantastical vegetation in Destiny 2 is caused by terraforming via the Vex. This is probably one of the least accurate representations of any location in all of Destiny 2. It's a cool location in game, but doesn't really represent the actual centaur very well. Granted, we don't know a whole lot about the centaur, so Destiny could be right, it's just incredibly unlikely. The last location I want to talk about before I end this video is both Xur's treasure hoard and the Dreaming City. They're a pretty eclectic combination, but that's for good reason. Both locations are influenced by black holes or wormholes, as they exist in pocket dimensions in unknown space and are accessed through portals. While there isn't any direct evidence of wormholes in our universe, they are technically possible according to our best theory of gravity, general relativity. However, they may require regions of space-time with negative mass density, which is technically possible but might not exist at the masses required to form a stable traversable wormhole. It would be pretty difficult to create one with tidal forces that aren't so strong that they completely destroy anyone who tries to traverse them. Realistic wormholes would resemble a black hole when viewed from the outside, so our best visualization of them is ironically the supermassive black holes at the center of galaxies. The tidal forces involved in supermassive black holes are actually small enough that you can reach the event horizon without dying. The event horizon is the point at which no light can escape from a black hole. We have images of both the black hole at the center of our galaxy and the one at the center of the galaxy M87, both created by the Event Horizon Telescope project. Neither of these images really match what we see in-game. The treasure hoard wormhole looks like a vortex of water on a lake, which is a good analog for a two-dimensional black hole, but doesn't accurately depict what one with 3 spatial dimensions and 1 time dimension would look like. Destiny 2 doesn't do a good job of showing how mind-bending these objects would be in real life. The movie Interstellar does a much better job, and interestingly enough was the most accurate depiction of a black hole prior to the Event Horizon Telescope images in 2017 and 2022 due to work by physicist Kip Thorne and collaborators. Overall, Destiny doesn't need to be super scientifically accurate to be a fun game, but I hope you've enjoyed looking at the real science behind some of the game's locations as much as I've enjoyed making this video. Are there any locations whose real-life versions surprised you the most compared to in-game? Make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. My name is Ephraim, and I would like to thank you for watching.